It just seems a little pricey for a unique fixer-upper opportunity, that's all. What do you think, Egon?
I think this building should be condemned.
Hey, does this pole still work? Wow, this place is great! When can we move in?
The firehouse is a character in Ghostbusters and was very specifically a character in the writing of this new installment in Frozen Empire.
We're back at the firehouse that the originals, the OGs, kind of lived in and worked out of.
Hello, Ghostbusters.
We're all back in the firehouse. Janine's the queen of that particular small country.
Ghostbusters, what do you want?
It's great being in the firehouse. That's where things happen. There's some great places to work, and this is one of those great sets.
Home sweet home.
We knew early on in our process of writing that the next stage of the Spangler story would see them coming to New York City. And almost by design, New York City requires a scaling up. It requires bigger stakes, bigger ghosts, greater thrills, and a larger cast. And all of those things were things I was really excited and daunted by the task of having to confront.
All right, we're back, baby. Ghostbusters are back. Back in the big city, back in the Big Apple. Gotta take a bite out of the Big Apple.
For much of the process of writing and filming, this film was work titled Ghostbusters Firehouse. And that is because we saw it not just as a location, but as an emotional environment, a context, an embodiment of the past, the importance of home and what it means to have something to stand up and fight for, and also the future.
I kind of like to stay and fight for this place.
It's not our place.
Of course it is.
The Ghostbusters Firehouse is completely iconic. Every time I stand in front of it, I imagine my father standing there at that corner of Northmore and Varick, looking at that building and choosing that to be the Ghostbusters Firehouse. The real building is Hook and Ladder 8. It's the 8th fire station in New York history. And it's so unique, it's a century old. You know, it was built originally to have horse and carriage inside it.
Jason and I went over to New York and visited the firehouse as part of the promotional tour of Afterlife. And it was during those visits that we were starting to think about how a more fully fleshed out version of a family story could take place in this environment.
Doors close, friends change, but family is the one thing that's there no matter what.
The exterior fire station has always been in Tribeca. The interior is in Los Angeles. So on the first film in '84, they went out to New York. They shot outside the New York Public Library. They shot outside Dana's apartment building here. But then the interior for the fire station was in downtown Los Angeles, near the Mission. That's basically one of the most famous buildings in film history at this point. When people see it, they know exactly what it is. It's a place on the planet that you can go and you can stand in front of. And when you're standing here, or in the one in New York, you know Venkman was here.
Can you guys just build a new one?
So it's important to this story. Building it and realizing it on screen became one of the primary challenges of putting this film up on its feet.
Let's go inside. Come on in. Even when Gil and I started writing this movie, we realized that, all right, what is our relationship with the Ghostbusters Firehouse? Obviously, we know what it looks like outside. We've seen the car come in and out of it. We know what this first floor is like. Janine at the desk answering the phone.
Ghostbusters.
Bill hopping the desk over there. But what we hadn't seen was people go from floor to floor. We hadn't felt that interconnectivity, because on the first two movies, they kind of flew by. They were like, they threw together that second floor. Yeah. We wanted to make a set where you could actually go with an actor, get on the fire pole, go down from one floor to floor, and like feel like you really were living inside it.
Eve Stewart, our production designer, took on the challenge of building this firehouse with a level of precision, detail, and storytelling acumen that astounded all of us.
Right now, we're in the firehouse. We're not actually in the real firehouse, but we're in an incredible set that was built by our amazing team here in London.
A firehouse is its own character, so I wanted to respect that. The design aesthetic of this movie is a tricky one because you want to have stuff everywhere. Every wall is packed with like tech and gadgets and like really interesting bits and pieces.
You look around and it looks just like the firehouse used to look, but every little detail is thought through. Fire pole?
Oh yeah, you really gotta try that thing, dude.
The firehouse was like what it would be like in the first movie. Just get to walk around and like go up and down the stairs.
Being on the set, it's a magical experience. Every square inch of it is living, you know, it really feels like you're living in these spaces.
I've learned to just stuff it to the gunnels, which works really well for the firehouse kitchen. The Spenglers, they're a family who are making proton packs and creating wands, you know, melting metal at the kitchen table while eating pizza. So that kind of amalgamation was fun.
We're always reacting to whatever it is around us. And also there might be something just in the, like where we're in the kitchen and it's like, oh, here's some prop or something that's like just part of the set design that you could pick up and use in the scene.
There are generations of stories that have happened there. The firehouse had ghosts for, 4 decades now. And so there are scars of past events.
One of my favorite details of the set is this patch in the floor matched by the patch in the ceiling. And this, of course, is the cross rip from 1984 when the Canadian unit blew open and shot a laser right up. I wish I could say this was my idea, this is between Gil and Eve. And by the way, it's not something that we ever point to. You have to find on your own. And this is history.
It's quite subtle, but I really wanted to show that we've patched up all the ceilings and floors from the explosion.
And it's emotional. I visited the set obviously while they were building it, but the first time that I walked in and it was complete, I actually started crying. It obviously made me think about my father, but just being able to travel back to being 12 years old and sitting on the steps over there and watching the guys do their scene work.
And they've done a remarkable job of recreating it here. We actually have the poles that you slide down. That's a lot of fun. I think I'm too old to do that now, but every time I walk past them, I just want to jump on it and slide down.
Obviously, what breaks my heart is that my father's not here. What kills me is that he would love this set because of everything it means. Not only that this was a building that he chose 40 years ago and that he was in love with the design of, but beyond that, this is a story that's always been part of his life.
It really was an extraordinary set and so important for a film like this where there is going to be a lot of fantasy that's put on screen. And so to have a grounding for our actors to be able to feel like they were living and breathing as their characters within the firehouse, that was very important to me.
This is the home of the Ghostbusters. We're the Ghostbusters.
The mood of any set is really determined by a director.
As a 7-year-old, my dad took me to see a movie, and that movie happened to be Ghostbusters. It was the summer of 1984. We had just moved to Los Angeles. In fact, we had just moved to America. So everything was new and exciting and big, and Ghostbusters was the first big American film experience that I had.
Gil co-wrote the script with Jason Reitman, so he knows what page we're on all the time.
Yes.
All the time.
Great.
Jason is around producing this, so it does feel as if the connective tissue, everything else is still there.
And now Gil has taken the helm, and he's a very experienced filmmaker. He understands the world through and through.
Gil is great to work with. First of all, he's UCLA trained. And if you saw his other movies, you see that he's a visualist and he knows how to pace a movie, move it along and cut it, and loves working with actors.
I'll give you the door cue after the win, so you can close the door, then use that into all right, we're out of time.
He almost feels like someone who won a contest to get to come and make a film for a day. That's how enthusiastic he is, and it just translates to the whole cast. His energy's fantastic. I think the best thing about Gil is that he understands exactly the tone of the movie that he's making. He really sees the whole movie in his head. It's this great mix of knowing exactly what he wants and also being open to being surprised and finding something different that he hadn't thought of.
I trust Gil because I know he has the love of the film and the fans that he's really working to bring this gift to fruition and make it special.
Cut, perfect.
I think that that's the lovely part about working with Gil or Jason, is that they both know Phoebe so well because they're the ones who created her, and so it's not like somebody new coming in and like, oh no, Phoebe, like I gotta protect her. It's somebody that is trusting me with their character and that I'm able to build it with him. I love it.
Afterlife was an introduction to a new branch of the Spangler family for the audience, and it was important for Jason and I to root the story going forward in character.
Somehow they've taken that really touching story that had to do with Harold's legacy and then brought it forward in time and continued to hold on to that thread of family, which I think is the linchpin that connects not only the films, but the original fans of the film who are bringing their kids.
1, 2, 3.
Who are you gonna call?
That was awesome.
One of the great gifts that I've gotten in directing this film is this casting that began in 1984 and continued into Afterlife.
It's very exciting to be back in another Ghostbusters movie. It's all a bit surreal. You know, you never really get used to it.
It's really cool to see everybody again and get to work with everyone and to rediscover the character as a teenager and bring her to life again after so long.
So, the most disappointing member of the cast is probably Paul Rudd. He's just a sad guy. He's kind of a wet blanket to be around, you know? He'd probably say the same thing about me.
That's true. The only way I could describe it would be like kind of a black soul. Like it's like an inner, like a rage. And then I tend to suppress during EPK interviews.
Finn and Paul are hilarious. They're just always doing bits and messing around.
After this one. This is the last one. One more.
And they're just hilarious. Like, they're the same. They are one and the same. They are two kindred spirits.
Me, Paul, Carrie, and McKenna kind of feel like a family is because I think all of us just actually care about each other. And as a cast, like, you know, as a cast, you already kind of feel like a family.
As a team.
A family.
Yeah, the Spanglers. We're the Spanglers.
Okay.
Logan's podcast is a comic sidekick for the ages, irreverent, audacious, plucky with an outsized sense of confidence.
Phoebe podcast and Phoebe can't keep us apart. Dynamic duo.
It's great to actually connect with everybody, and you know, since we're a younger generation, we're kind of picking up the new torch for Ghostbusters.
Yes! When I saw Logan for the first time when I showed up here, it was like, oh my God, like you're a young man. You were a little kid when I met you last time.
Yes!
For Celeste's Lucky character, there was a hunger to experience a life beyond Somerville.
This place is a job.
It would be unfair to their character to not allow them to fulfill that dream.
When you said you were interning, I didn't know you'd be blowing stuff away with lasers.
I know, right? It's still an upgrade. It's been so lovely to work with Finn and McKenna and Carrie and Paul and all of them again. So it really feels like a little family.
Hey, man.
Hey. It just makes sense if you're gonna make a Ghostbusters movie that you're gonna bring the best comedians you can to the party. It makes our job as storytellers that much easier.
It's been really surreal working on a Ghostbusters movie because Ghostbusters is literally my favorite thing in the world that's not like a human being or an animal. It was my first favorite movie. I've seen all the Ghostbusters movies so many times. I've seen the entire animated series. So I'm a massive, massive, massive Ghostbusters fan.
Nadeem has one of the most surprising arcs in this story. He goes from a sort of unassuming schlub to somebody who learns that within him exists a great ancient power of fire mastery.
Let the record show, I gave you a chance. What's great about Ghostbusters is that it's always been a story about underdogs. And Nadeem really encompasses the thing that makes Ghostbusters special. He's a slacker. I'm a licensed third-party reseller. He's completely discounted by everyone around him, and he's the only one who can tackle this big, terrifying demon.
Camille brings a lot to the character. He's so funny, and not only is he an amazing comedian, but he's a very gifted actor and brings a sort of sweetness to the role that is perfect for this kind of world.
I've known Kumail for years. He's very good at playing overwhelmed.
That was closer. Don't patronize me.
He stepped into the role perfectly.
Patton Oswalt, my Twitter friend, is here. It's always fun to have him around, and he's kind of taking over the nerdy scholar part.
Do I believe in spirits? Yes, I believe in spirits. I believe in self-winding clocks and the singing cheeses of Copenhagen. Please, continue.
We needed an outsider with a head that could hold volumes of a library. A guy who could stand in front of you and tell you about the ancient past with a sense of delicious joy and irony that only Patton Oswalt could bring to the party.
What is it?
No, the better question is, what's inside of it?
What's inside of it?
Excellent question.
Ray, Podcast, and Phoebe have brought actual physical proof of the paranormal. So for the first time, I think in his career, this is outside of him reading about it, researching about it, arguing about it online. He's very courageous in his knowledge, and now we get to see how much courage he has when he actually faces up against real phantoms and other, spectral presences.
So cool. Anywho.
Backstage, very exciting. If you got costume, you got hair and makeup here. And look at this. Someone has written in masking tape, cast, with an exclamation mark at the end. That's showbiz stuff.
We've been huge fans of James Acaster's for a long time. Jason and I had both seen him do stand-up live in London, and when it was time to think about a brilliant but weird new scientist for the lab, that James Acaster would be the guy to fill that flight suit.
They play ghosts in the movie. I don't know where I sit generationally. I guess I'm in the middle. Some people I've got to be respectful to, and some people I can push around. So that's what I like. When Wolfhard comes in, I really start that's when I'm really mean. Whoa. Finn Wolfhard. He gets no respect from me whatsoever, and he knows that. But apart from me and my ways, it's one big happy family.
James I've gotten close with, and yeah, he's just so funny and cool, and I've been able to hang out with him a fair bit, so it's been great to get to know everyone.
Kumail and Patton and James, just superb comedic skills. And I love it that the story's opened up to embrace these new players, and all of them are just so funny in their own right.
I will say that the people playing this different generation, they are nice people.
Yeah.
They're really nice, and they're fun. They're good. But they're not as much fun as we are. So we're here not just as performers, but as educators, really. That's what we do.
One of the things that has been amazing working on this is, you get to work with legends.
The OGs are back, of course. You can't make a Ghostbusters film without the Ghostbusters.
What's fun about this movie is right from the get-go, you have everyone in play. You get the new characters, the original Ghostbusters, and they're all working together.
This is the way I want to spend my golden years.
To meet your heroes and getting to work with your heroes, and also seeing them all still have Ghostbusters in them, So when Ray Stantz talks, or when Janine talks, when Winston talks, they feel and sound exactly like Ghostbusters. Like they feel exactly the same.
Let's get to work. It feels almost like coming home. You know what I mean? It's like you're a kid, you grow up in a room, you go away, and then you go back to that room, and it's still pictures on the wall, and it's still your bed that's there, and the toys you used to play with. It's times have changed, but this is home. Ghostbusters is home.
I think all of us, when we get together, it's like, it's kind of odd and wonderful, and it's like, wow, we've had a long run with this, haven't we? It's sweet.
You have done it! I'm so happy to see Walter Peck again. Bill Atherton has been a good friend of mine since we did the original Ghostbusters. He's such a gifted actor, and I love watching his process, watching him work. It's beautiful.
The uniqueness about Ghostbusters, it's a deeply, provocatively, simple, lovely thing, and very unique. There's nothing quite like it, and that's what they're doing now, and that's what Ivan did.
You can have it your way, Mr. Venkman.
And I remember that so fondly.
Good, I'm so happy to hear that, Mr. Mayor.
Sitting there and talking to Dan Aykroyd about some of the most important moments in comedy history for, freaks like me and Kumail and Patton, it's the coolest thing ever.
Dan is sort of very careful about the lore of it all and the writing of it all, and good at keeping everyone sort of on track. Bill Murray allows for this sort of like fun beats or like improv that kind of like plays into that as well. And like Ernie is like the classic trained actor that's there and that's just so good and so good at responding to everyone and kind of keeping all the madness at bay.
Playing the parts again, I think it's pretty much fun to get back into. There's enough room for everyone to be funny and to tell the story, tell it in the way that we've had some success doing. We're having a fine time together.
To hand the torch to this talented group is really gratifying, and they're taking it with great vigor and commitment. And so for me to be able to bridge the generations, it's really, really fulfilling and satisfying, and they are quite outstanding, this cast. Yeah, they're big stars all in their own right. And now they're Ghostbusters for life.
The world right now is experiencing unusual paranormal activity. We are here to answer that call because we are the Ghostbusters!
You here for the ghosts?
Every time you're creating a new Ghostbusters story, it means sky's the limit in terms of the diversity of spirits. It was a joy to start to imagine what spirits we would get to meet in this film.
This grandfather clock is inhabited by the spirit of an actual grandfather.
Oh my god, there's a lot of ghosts, you guys.
The Spangler family is chasing a sewer dragon through the streets of New York. A terrible place to stop traffic.
It's action-packed and setting us up for maybe destroying some city property and starting off on the wrong foot with the people of New York.
We took inspiration from the subway dragon in the 1984 Ghostbusters. Some of our challenges with the sewer dragon was trying to get a dragon that's transparent and glowing to read in the bright blue skies.
What I love is the juxtaposition between the chaos that's happening outside and then the sort of mundane family dynamics that are happening inside the car.
Trev, we need power! Can you not talk to me like that, please? I'm 18 now. I'm an adult.
And then we've got Phosphor, which is this really cool ghost that creates light, and it's really pretty and ethereal and freaky.
He's this bioluminescent creature, like a jellyfish, and it emitted this beautiful bioluminescent light.
We were trying to find a ghost that was a little scarier, and something that also created a little bit of unease to the viewer.
And then we have Pukey.
He's cute. Yeah. Hey, buddy.
He looks like a little kumquat.
Oh, you gave me the fight of my life. I thought you were one of the big scary ones.
And he like rolls. He's so funny. I think he's my favorite because he just looks so silly.
How'd you get all the way up here?
I think Pukey's everyone's favorite. Basically just projectile vomits slime whenever he gets scared or feels frightened.
Pukey can puke vast amounts of vomit, way more than its body should be able to contain. It was a pretty big moment for me. I got covered head to toe in puke. The puke felt warm and flavourless. Pukey is obviously my favourite of the ghosts.
Pukey ended up being a full CG character, but we did have a small maquette that was used for lighting, reference, framing, etc. And then there was collaboration with special effects with regards to kind of the puke of Pukey. There were some cannons that would shoot out the slime into the window in the lab.
Possessor was a really fun character to create. It started out as this flash of light that was going from object to object.
Possessor can take a hold of anything and do exactly what the name also says, to just possess things.
Possessor's particular diorama is just filled with thrifted objects, so it looks like a mid-century modern living room, and that's where he's living, sort of out of time. I love that detail.
It was supposed to feel like this almost invisible ghost that you didn't know where it was or where it was going to end up.
The dark side of this character is that if it gets out, it could cause a lot of damage.
As it darts around really quickly, it leaves whatever it's taking over red. So when it takes over the Ecto, all of the lights on the Ecto turn red, and you know that Possessor has possessed that object.
For Melody, we've never spent this much time with a spirit in a Ghostbusters film.
Bo, Melody is a ghost who lives in Manhattan and runs around and likes to prank mortals. You know I'm a ghost, right?
Kind of figured when the chess pieces started moving on their own.
It meant that creating her look had to be ephemeral and beautiful, but also gave her a unique signature in this film.
Nice. Flames, by the way.
Thanks. You can tell Melody's a ghost by her blue flames. And then I'm also floating everywhere and all that stuff.
We work very closely with visual effects. One example was Melody and her custom flames. Gil said, "Can you do this on an entire body?" Gil doesn't want it to be like a human torch, just wants low shimmering flames all over a body, and ideally blue flames. We ended up creating a mix of brandy and hand sanitizer to spread over a dummy, and then we shot and gave to the visual effects house so they could superimpose it onto the character of Melody.
Sounds cool.
Melody's flames also help show where she is emotionally. So throughout the film, you can kind of see those flames grow or subside depending on where she is emotionally. The second part to that was the transparency of Melody. Gil really leaned into the idea of her being a ghost with a lot of transparency. So she was a big challenge, one of the more difficult characters to get a handle on.
One of my favorite additions to the Ghostbusters universe is the Mini Puffs. These menacing toddlers who just want to break everything, and they are definitely back.
In this movie, Ray smuggled the Mini Puffs back from Somerville to New York City, which was definitely not a good idea. Podcast is annoyed with them now. He just wants them gone and dealt with.
The Mini Puffs are obviously a fan favorite. We had to bring those back and make sure that their mischievousness carried through to this movie.
Gil did such a great job of creating all of these really unique vignettes. They always kind of make you chuckle a little bit.
It was fun because we actually ended up buying marshmallows and playing with them. We tried to put marshmallow into an actual pencil sharpener to see what it would do. It was really messy, to say the least.
It's disgusting. Who's coming right for us?
Typical manifestation of evil, ender of worlds, that kind of thing.
Garaka is no joke. He's been trapped for a really long time in a brass orb, and he wants to kind of gather all of the ghosts and, kill every living thing on the planet.
Terrifying. So terrifying. Very scary looking.
I knew that I wanted Garaka to be a character who brought genuine terror into this film.
We had a lot of conversations with Gil early on about how imposing and menacing he needed to feel.
These sort of long, loping, curving fingernails, a set of horns that stretch out wildly in every direction that could make you genuinely frightened when you walked into the room.
Ultimately, we ended up with having this delicate frost over him, and he has dry ice smoke effect that kind of comes off of his body.
There was an intent with regards to even the materials of the skin to maybe be a little more silicone-based, maybe a little more stretchy.
I knew it was critical that we would actually design some of these elements, like his costumes, his props, and have them fully built out so that the camera can photograph them. Ruth Myers, who's the same costume designer who I worked with on Monster House, built out the gnarliest, most heavily textured fabric cutting I've ever held in my hand for Garaka's skirts. And in those moments where it comes up close to the camera, you really feel something. Ivan Reitman gave us a huge gift with the first Ghostbusters film because he created a diverse ecosystem of spirits, from the human and ephemeral, like the library ghost, to the tactile and ferocious, like the terror dogs, and everything in between.
My favorite ghost from the first movie is the librarian ghost. Because of how scary it is.
Get her!
It scared the crap out of me. It still does.
It was a thrill to bring the library ghost back to life.
We couldn't go back to New York and to the library without seeing her and having her hopefully scare us and everyone again.
The library ghost is probably one of my favorite parts of this new movie because we are staying true to who she was in '84. We actually had the opportunity to unarchive the original 1984 65mm neg, and we're repurposing that in this movie for her performance, which I think is awesome.
The librarian ghost is the first ghost we ever met in the library in 1984.
Rod puppetry is really our old school method of bringing things to life, and it's really cool that we're coming back to it here now.
It's a great example of collaboration between multiple departments.
When the audience sees that ghost, they remember, there she is. She hasn't left. She's in the same place she was 40 years ago.
There's a famous ghost that Trevor encounters, which is Slimer from '84 and from Ghostbusters 2.
As soon as we knew we were making Ghostbusters films again, the first question was, how soon can we get Slimer back? Slimer has always lived in Manhattan, so we needed to get back to New York.
Slimer as a character who was puppeteered, and that's where this film was really exciting because Gil really pushed for practical photography, so we had a real Slimer.
Arjen, who was our creature designer, acquired somehow in the dark corners of the internet a small piece of the original foam for the hero Slimer from 1984 and used that foam as part of the liquid stew that he poured into his molds to create Slimer for this film.
He's just really gross. We had to add slime to his mouth and his fingers, and when he's eating the Cheetos, it's kind of like this dusty, gooey stuff all over him.
It's really exciting to have that character back in the world.
There is nothing like staring into the face of a puppet or a creature and knowing that the artistry of puppeteers, creature creators, is going to be moving that in front of the camera. It creates a tangibility, a relatability, a sense of tactile feel that is something that you chase for months when creating a character through CG. Ghostbusters has always been a very inclusive effects playground. It's always brought in spirits from every corner of the craft universe of filmmaking. And so for me, it was not just the ability to do it, but also the requirement as the director of this film to pull in all of those forces.
Is that super secret underground ghost busting stuff?
Switch me on.
That's right, Gary. Super secret underground ghost busting stuff.
With this new Ghostbusters movie, we have so many new gadgets, and we're expanding the Ghostbusters universe in a really exciting way.
With Afterlife, we were able to engineer a new way to trap spirits with the RTV, this remote operated trap vehicle. In this story, because of the vertical challenges of trying to capture a spirit in Manhattan, our Ghostbusters team now have the ability to use a drone trap, which is well, it does exactly what it sounds like.
We've added a new element, which is the drone, which I get to pilot, which is really fun for me.
And as Callie's got her drone remote in her ecto goggles, she says, right, we're gonna have to catch this guy. Bang, presses the button. The dome opens on the top of the roof rack, and out comes a drone. It sits up, the wings pull out. Boom. Great, fantastic piece of engineering.
It's such a natural, organic next step in the evolution of ghost busting that it almost felt like an obvious next step.
Later, Gator.
The
proton packs obviously play a big part in this movie. We've got the original ones, and they still play. They've come from Afterlife. They've come back into the firehouse.
This is a lightweight pack. Usually my pack is the one that sparks, and it's like 30 pounds. But this one is like nothing. It's incredible.
4 or 6 old-style proton packs, which get taken away by the authorities at some point.
Civil forfeiture, I believe is the terminology.
The proton packs are seeing a bit of an upgrade.
The new packs.
The lab has created some small improvements, focusing on the muzzle. There is slight changes to the way that the proton stream is thrown with those packs.
Light them up!
And some visual improvements that just unify the look and give the new Ghostbusters an identity that feels very much in keeping with the step into the future that the lab suggests.
Very similar, but a lot more sexy. And they got the yellow tinge to them, and the lights are brighter, and they're gonna work. They look fantastic. When they're all laid out together, they look absolutely fantastic.
Today I was looking at the proton pack. It's like heavy and detailed. You would think that they actually are real. They would work. It's just super impressive.
And they've come a long way since the 80s. I mean, there's a lot of triggers and switches and everything lights up.
So there are some innovations to the traditional proton pack. There's a wrist-mounted proton cannon that fires off single discrete blasts of proton. These are all sort of done with the same classic spirit of DIY, garage tabletop engineering that is very much at the heart of what a ghost-busting piece of kit feels like.
The one shooter, and it's sort of like a proton pack. It's just on one sleeve and a handle at the front, which bang, one shooter. It's only this size.
It's called a compact thrower, and it is essentially the same proton beam as the original packs, but it kind of does a single blast at the enemy. I think audience members are gonna have fun recreating this new pack for their own collection.
Well, when it comes to Ecto-1, the rule you don't mess with perfection comes to mind. That's amazing. It's very, very strange seeing it here, isn't it? Really cool. Okay, I'll take it. Sold. Incredible. Now it feels like we're making a Ghostbusters movie. There's a new coat of paint on Ecto-1, some new racing stripes, and a new bit of kit on the roof rack that comes to bear on the sewer dragon scene. But otherwise, it was really a process of embracing perfect design decisions that were made 40 years ago.
I think there's a lot of attention to detail that's kind of put into the car, obviously. It's like behind us, like, you know, there's dirt and kind of grime and stuff like that put onto the doors and everything.
Watching its effect on New Yorkers when it drove through the streets of the city during some of the scenes that we filmed there, it sort of gives you that same feeling you see when the Ghostbusters were running through Manhattan in 1984 and people would sort of crane their neck and smile.
Even just walking in right now and seeing the Ecto-1 behind me in all of its glory is really exciting.
Can I actually start it? Yeah, just start it.
The feel of that car, the joy that it elicits, that's all part of the joy of Ghostbusters.
Hold on to your ass!
While you have to have the Ecto-1, they've also invented some new technology.
This is Ray's bike. I co-own it.
No, you don't.
I work on it sometimes.
Just because you're allowed to sit on it.
I know a lot about motorcycles, actually. I like whenever it goes fast.
Can't wait to see the foundation here, man. Stoked, yeah. Just been a photographs we've been working with, so we got the actual pieces here. This is awesome. We're gonna build the brackets to put the sidecar on.
I'm in the sidecar, which I think is arguably more exciting.
No, I think being behind.
And of course, this is gun, which we've got to conceal in here. And these make these panels move. And they'll all be driven with pneumatic rams, compressed air. So it'll be silent and it gives you lots of power. It'll all be automated. I'll have a little system that I can set it in motion. And
Like a remote control?
Yeah.
Wow.
then the gun will come out through and be positioned here like that.
Yes!
And then these 4 lights is the proton pack. This indicates the 4 lights you get on the proton pack.
Right.
And we're just going to graft a little bit of the pack, so you just see a bit of a shape, and
Right.
it's not obvious what it is.
Uh-huh.
I have the neutrino wand that pops out. It's so fun getting to put on a proton pack or a light suit. It's the coolest thing in the world, and I'll never get over how cool it is to be in a Ghostbusters film. I love it so much.
Welcome to the Paranormal Research Center. Ghostbusting asks a lot of questions, and now we have a place to find the answers.
When Gil and I started concepting this movie out, we wanted to think about what else has Winston done with Ghostbusters? Could he have a lab now, a place to actually study ghosts and design the ghost-busting equipment of the future?
We discover for the first time the Paranormal Research Center.
Winston has set up this extraordinary lab where they're studying any kind of parapsychology.
We have a parabotanist, we even have a paramusicologist. What Winston is looking for is answers to what are we doing? What is busting ghosts? Why is this phenomena happening? What does this lead to? All these things that we could only barely comprehend.
Home on the Strange,
where the specters and entities play.
The Paranormal Center is Lucky's territory. This is her domain. This is where she comes every day to make new discoveries. And there's a lot of really fun things happening there.
Good luck extracting whatever's inside it.
Feels a little bit almost like a Bond movie when, you know, James Bond goes to check out the new weapons and there's all people in lab coats and they're showing you can kill somebody with this pen.
I used to have one of these.
Mind your fingers.
The lab and all the detail, it just nurtures that imagination and it gives you a chance to create a world that is real, at least for a moment, to you. And that's very, very special.
In typical Ghostbusters fashion, we wanted to reclaim an old piece of New York history, so we chose the Triborough Aquarium.
I did a lot of research and I found a really amazing deco aquarium that had existed in Baltimore in the 1930s, and it was just gave me the inspiration for all the tiles and the kind of shapes. Then we knew we had to do an exterior for this aquarium in New York, and we found this great big round building on Staten Island that we're going to use as the exterior. Then that refed back to us to kind of do sketches and design these kind of very aqueous shapes and corridors and arches. And it just seemed so good to have empty tanks for the ghosts.
He's cute.
Yeah. Hey, buddy. The colour palette of the Paranormal Center was very much based on just looking really watery, really. I'd based the ionic separator on kind of an old machine with those kind of very classic colours of yellow and red for the containment unit. And the amazing lustrous green really shows them off. There were 4 people working with me on this. I gave them a list of what I thought the ghosts were doing, and then they just really made it come to life. That was great. And graphics are amazing, doing all these charts and readouts, and I just had to work out how to get as much in as possible. It became a kind of collaborative event, trying to create something that worked.
I cannot emphasize enough how much more fun and interesting and easier it is to act in that kind of environment, because you don't have to waste your imagination on the environment.
Bill Murray interrogates me and he puts the thing on my head that was on Rick Moranis' head in the first movie. And it's a scene where he's just needling me and messing with me the entire time.
Ow!
That's pretty good.
It feels like all of the artists are bringing their A game, and they're all sort of welcome to sort of contribute to make everything as good and precise as they can.
You're the one who brought it up. I don't want... I told you to stop throwing pens at me. What are you staring at?
Did I pass? These new flight suits, so they're black, and the patch is the original with the ghost and the red line through it, but it's a cog because this is Zeddemore Industries. You know, we're more on the techie side of things.
To the naked eye, it might just look like the same flight suit in black, but for Zeddemore Industries, we made a few different changes. It's just a slightly slimmer cut. The fabric is a black ripstop, where the originals are a tan ripstop, so we wanted to keep it into the same fabric world so it has the same feel. And we also have a fun new addition. They have a Ghostbusters coat, which has been great.
It feels really special to be able to wear this new black Ghostbusters jumpsuit. It's such an honor, and it's such a great example of the ways that this Ghostbusters world is changing and evolving to incorporate new ideas and new characters and new storylines.
He's freezing.
With Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, we wanted a whole new villain. Garaka is an ancient god that goes back thousands of years.
Our threat, our new villain, Garaka, is so dangerous, so sinister, that it takes every Ghostbuster who can pick up a proton pack to even stand a chance to go up against him.
He does this thing called the Husharat Umoti, which is the death chill. He literally scares you to death. He's so scary that you literally freeze in fear and die.
There's something about fear that is deeply connected to the idea of cold. What if you could be so scared that you froze to death? And that's where the character of Garaka came from.
Garaka's death chill posed a lot of challenges because the movie takes place in the middle of summer, and so you're fighting this bright, beautiful landscape at Coney Island's summer storm sequence.
It was a process of visual discovery during pre-production that led me to these ice spears, these sort of very aggressive, outsized projectiles. They are the hallmarks of a Garaka frozen environment.
His breath effect, we needed to be able to portray that it was something that was dangerous to his enemies.
The difficulty with developing that was trying to show wind, trying to show something that sometimes isn't visually present. So imagine a strong wind in a blizzard. We started to adopt those kinds of looks.
Whenever you see that breath, you see how it's destroying the proton beams, you see how it's freezing the characters. You're supposed to really feel like the life is being sucked out of the person that it's attacking, using this milky look over their eyes, veining through their skin.
He's quite imposing and specific. And what I love, too, is the way they've used the aural landscape. So Garaka's primary weapon is this sort of vibration and sound he can send out into the paranormal world to collect his army.
Does it have to be her?
It's commanding the other ghosts with some sort of mind control.
And so I love the idea of the sort of like pulsing sound. It's attracting all of these ghosts, like a dog whistle or something. It's a great detail.
With regards to the orb that had tracked Garaka,
These kinds of brass objects were used to trap evil spirits.
Or you think there's something inside it?
it was a practical prop, but the majority of the movement, kind of in character, I guess you could say, for the orb itself, was developed more in post.
The creation of Garaka's orb was quite interesting. It's this brass shape that's got all of these little runic symbols all over it, these tiles that hold it all together. And so we wanted to come up with an idea where you could really feel the struggle of an entity within being attacked by this power that sits around it.
Off the chart telekinetic energy, full bore convective spatter.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
It has a very similar kind of shifting, uncomfortable movement that kind of comes back to the idea of it trying to be practical. Like, we didn't want to push it too far. It had to have a little bit of shuddering to it, something that could maybe be considered an optical effect.
It's those sort of things that actually help you cross that threshold from something that feels visual to something that feels visceral. And that is all the difference in trying to create terror on screen.
We are at Sony Studios at the newly renamed John Williams building in the Barbra Streisand recording studio. We've been recording the score for Frozen Empire.
It's the scariest Ghostbusters story we've had to date.
Lucky!
And that required a score that could rise to the challenge.
Oh, shit.
And Dario Marinelli is perfectly in lockstep with the tone of the story that I'm trying to tell.
You're doing it! This is awesome!
Finding the right tone for this film has been a difficult process because there is horror, there is comedy.
Tall, dark, and horny at 12 o'clock.
And I think the music has to go all these places. And what a fantastic starting point to have all these wonderful themes by Elmer Bernstein from the first score.
I am the son of Elmer Bernstein, the original composer of the original Ghostbusters, and that is a score that I orchestrated. When Dario was hired to write this score, I came on to provide information about the original score, the sounds that were used, and how it works.
That's great. Working with Peter Bernstein was a way to respect and embrace the sounds that Elmer was able to create.
You have done it!
Finding the right tone meant listening to the score several times, doing my own piano reduction, and just try to understand how harmony worked and how chords locked into each other and what intervals he was using.
Dario has not only woven the themes in, the actual quotes of the notes, but he's done something deeper, which he's taken the musical language from the original score and used it as building blocks for his own language for this score. That's a much deeper thing and quite skillfully done.
You'll try to do 6/13 today?
It's a very quiet cue. It'll be a little more mellow. That's very impressive. We've been spending time with the orchestra and with the choir, asking them to do crazy things.
For a second, could you play me down an octave? Let me hear what it sounds like.
Sometimes just going fishing for sounds.
It's worth getting. Yeah? That's beautiful.
That are impossible to write exactly on the paper.
Okay, let's take one like that.
Today, we are recording the choir, the voices. These are the moments where literally the sort of all-out cinematic, operatic qualities of Dario's score are coming to the fore.
Now let's get a shot with track.
You guys have been bringing so much life and soul into the film. It's just incredible to feel so much humanity. Great work, all of you.
There's a huge amount of percussion in the score. There were all sorts of things that were banged and bashed with all sorts of implements. So it's a noisy score, for sure. With 2 sticks to bang on the other 2 sticks. That's it.
You will have heard a lot of unique sounds that Dario's employing in his score. One of the signature sounds that brings us right back to the sort of classic Hollywood horror score sound is an instrument called a waterphone. It's a resonating instrument, but it's played by our chief percussionist, Wade.
I grew up in the 70s and every scary TV show had this sound. It was Richard Waters, he was the inventor. That was the original back in the 70s. He made this one about 30 years later. Basically just a frying pan with spokes.
It creates that sort of eerie, ghostly, kind of inverted metal sound. Dario's employed it to terrifying effect throughout the score to tap into some of the deeper, more haunting soundscapes that this film employs. Behind me, Peter Bernstein is setting up the Yamaha DX7 synthesizer for our Ghostbusters film.
You tell us what you need, and we'll take you right to the bit and give you clicks.
It was important to me and to Dario to have the same pair of hands that graced the score all those years ago. Peter, what do you want to start with? Do you want to start with those initial sounds?
Gil, from the outset, wanted me to play the original notes from the original score.
The sounds that it's going to create will be instantly familiar to fans, and I couldn't be more excited. I can't wait to hear it.
It was quite a rush to be playing the same kind of machine 40 years later. The success I didn't expect to feel the way I felt when I played them. It was very emotional to be doing that.
Being here finishing the score that Dario wrote and that you put the cherry on top of today, I do feel really excited.
Thank you. Thank you. It's deeply appreciated by me to be a part of it.
The music is there more or less from the beginning to the end, and it's really a gift that keeps giving.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Dario. I'm a very lucky director today.
There's something strange in the neighborhood. Who are they gonna call?
This film is full of Easter eggs that on second, third, fourth viewing start to reveal themselves. If you look in the sort of dark corners, you're gonna find things that take you right back to the original films. It's a total joy.
When the light is green.
When the light is green.
Crap is clean.
We're not wasting any time. Barely 2 minutes into the movie, and we've got one. Do you see that number 8 on the fire chief's helmet? That's from Hook and Ladder 8 Firehouse that would ultimately become the official Ghostbusters HQ.
Wow, this place is great.
Pay close attention, or this Easter egg may pass right by. Notice the logo on those bikes?
Where are we gonna get the money?
Who puts bikes there?
Manhattan City Bank provided the loan that helped establish the Ghostbusters.
You're never gonna regret this, Ray.
In this news report, you'll see original commercials for Ghostbusters cereal and the toys based on the animated series The Real Ghostbusters. Here's the great Ray Parker Jr. dancing down the streets of New York. That's the actual music video for his hit theme song.
Hey, look what I found for movie night.
Recognize this cult classic? Ivan Reitman, director of Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, directed Cannibal Girls in 1973. Cannibal Girls also pops up on a marquee in Ghostbusters 2.
Movie theater.
And again in Ghostbusters Afterlife. That's an Easter egg within an Easter egg. You remember this thing?
This is it.
It was originally found here in Peter Bankman's office for his science experiments.
Will you excuse me for a second? Right in the middle of something, Ray.
Hey, Dr. Ray.
Does this pink slime look familiar?
Whatever this stuff is, it responds to human emotional states.
That's psychomagnetheric slime.
Mood slime.
As seen here in Ghostbusters 2.
Baby.
Here's a deep cut, also from Ghostbusters 2. See that helmet? The Ghostbusters used it to go undercover.
Am I right, Peter? Who's your right, Raymond? Is he right, Ziggy? Yo!
The Ecto goggles are back.
We're back, baby.
First worn by Ray Stantz, and with a slight upgrade that was introduced in Afterlife.
Talk to you guys later. Love you. Bye.
Looks like Podcast has hung a couple of memorable photos in his room. A stop sign bitten by Muncher, evidence of his encounter with the Mini-Puffs, and this shot of Phoebe in Oklahoma.
Are you recording me? Yeah, just in case your body's pulled apart into tiny pieces by an unseen dark force. All right. Bye.
The Firehouse Attic is a treasure trove of Easter eggs. Check out the stack of Omni magazines from the original Ghostbusters.
I got it! Pete!
And here's some merch from Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. Where have we seen this sign before? Within this mountain of mess, you'll see a familiar junk food wrapper.
It's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Talk about attention to detail. The plywood on the ceiling shows repairs made after the containment unit failure in the original Ghostbusters. Here's more evidence of patching done after that same blast. Let's not forget about the return of Slimer. Looks like he never left New York.
What happened? Are you okay?
He slimed me.
Ray's tattoo was first revealed in Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's a nod to this scene, where he incorrectly cites Revelation 7:12.
I remember Revelation 7:12.
It should be Revelation 6:12.
And I looked as he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake.
Fortunately, the tattoo is correct. Phoebe's still playing chess with the same chess set she had in Ghostbusters Afterlife. Note the license plate reads Ecto-Z. The Z is for Zedmore.
This is Winston Zedmore. He's here about the job.
Beautiful, you're hired.
Zoom in on the pattern on Phoebe's shirt. It's inspired by these symbols on the proton wand. Here we see the Washington Square arch freezing over. It was also haunted in Ghostbusters 2. The slime blower, seen here in the background, was first used in Ghostbusters 2.
Slime time.
The Ghostbusters return to the New York Public Library where they run into another familiar face.
Dr. Stantz! No, you are...
Actor John Rothman returns.
This library? Good to see you, buddy. Been a long time, huh?
Hi. And so does the iconic library ghost. To achieve her spooky cameo in Frozen Empire, the filmmakers scanned the dailies from the original Ghostbusters. Yep, still as terrifying as ever. If you look closely at the sign on the library steps, you can see the upcoming cello concert featuring Dana Barrett.
What's that?
Recognize this, Gizmo?
It's just a garden variety test. Are you a human?
It was first worn by Louis Tully in the original Ghostbusters and rediscovered by podcast in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Right, just a couple of human beings having a conversation. One of them has a pasta pot strapped to his head.
Who do you think wore it best?
We have the Fire Master.
Janine's desk is right where she left it, and it's covered in Easter eggs. Here in Ray's locker, you'll see the flight suit with the official Ghostbusters 2 patch. Have you ever noticed the Ecto-1 has no rearview mirror? We found it in Janine's locker. William Atherton returns as Walter Peck.
Power grid was shut off by Dickless here.
They caused an explosion.
Listen closely for the heckler.
How about you thank them, Dickless?
Is this true?
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
Some things never change, no matter the year, no matter the film. New York loves their Ghostbusters. And that's it for our little Easter egg hunt. See if you can find more.